Conversations that should have worked. What your mind is doing while you're listening. Someone starts with a sentence you've heard 100 versions of before. I just wanted to talk about yesterday. And before they finish, something inside you has already moved. Am I in trouble? Are they upset? Is this about the argument? Do I need to explain myself? The sentence is still arriving, but the conversation inside you has already begun. Most of us think of listening as if it were simple reception. Words come in, meaning lands, response follows, but that is not usually what happens. The sentence starts and the mind is already moving. It reaches backwards toward yesterday. It checks tone. It checks timing. It glances at the face, the pause, the pace of the voice. Before the speaker arrives at the point, the listener may already be deciding whether this is a problem, a complaint, a correction, or the beginning of a fight. The ears receive the sound. The mind begins building what it means. Meaning begins before the sentence ends. This is one of the quiet mechanics underneath conversations that seem to go bad all at once. Very often, the break does not begin at the visible disagreement. It begins in the private construction that forms while the other person is still speaking. By the time the sentence reaches its end, one person may already be halfway inside an answer. Sometimes that answer is accurate, sometimes it is defensive, often it is both. Because before we answer the words, we often answer the kind of conversation we believe we are in. Is this a request, a complaint, a correction, criticism, bid for closeness, a threat? That decision happens quickly, usually too quickly to notice. But once the mind decides what kind of moment this is, everything that follows begins to pass through that frame. A question heard as concern invites openness. The same question heard as accusation invites defense. That is why two people can hear the same opening line and feel themselves inside different conversations. We complete the meaning before they complete the sentence. I just wanted to ask about yesterday. One person hears concern, another hears accusation, another hears disappointment, another hears danger. The words are the same, but the mind has already begun constructing the event around them. One person is listening for explanation, another is bracing for impact. By the time the speaker reaches the end of the sentence, the listener may already be inside a response to a conversation that has not fully happened yet. This is often what sits underneath the familiar exchange. That's not what I meant. That's how it sounded. Both people may be telling the truth from inside the conversation they built. The mind would rather be wrong than remain uncertain. The mind does not tolerate ambiguity for long. Unfinished space rarely stays empty. A pause becomes disappointment, a breath becomes a sigh, a neutral look becomes disapproval, an unfinished sentence becomes criticism. The mind would rather be wrong than remain uncertain. There is a reason it works this way. Research in cognitive science suggests that perception is not passive. We do not simply wait for meaning to arrive fully formed. We build our best sense of what is happening in real time from expectation, prior experience, and whatever cues seemed most available. Conversation works the same way. When meaning is incomplete, the mind reaches for an explanation. Recent memory, emotional residue, relational history, private fear. Often these predictions are built from real patterns. They are not invented from nowhere, but they are still predictions. A conversation finished early in the mind. If there was tension that morning, the pause may become judgment. If there was conflict last week, the question may become pressure. If you already feel guilty, even neutral language can arrive as accusation. We do not simply hear the conversation, we complete it. And that completion is often shaped before the point has fully arrived. The invisible split. This is where the invisible split often begins. A tired spouse hears criticism, an anxious employee hears threat, a guilty friend hears judgment, a wounded child hears rejection. Nothing in the sentence may explicitly contain these meanings, but the mind may finish it that way anyway. What hurts us is often not only what was said, it is what the mind finished for us. The visible break may come later, the sharp reply, the defensive tone, the cold withdrawal, but the real break often begins several seconds earlier, in the first private conclusion, the first silent assumption, the first answer to a conversation that has not yet fully arrived. The next problem. If this is true, then two people can stand inside the same moment and walk away with different conversations. Not because either one is irrational, because each mind is building from more than the words alone. And that raises the next question. If both people heard the same sentence, why did they build different meanings from the same moment? That is the next problem, the problem of invisible intent. This is the third podcast of an ongoing series examining the mechanics of ordinary conversations that go bad. If you'd like to receive new installments each week, feel free to subscribe, and thanks for listening.